everyone, and welcome to season 7 and another exciting episode on Issues and Answers with yours truly, the Honorable Valencia Stovall. You're listening to new WCEG Network, WCEG We're the worldwide community empowerment group where we speak life into the community. Disclaimer: the topics and opinions that you will hear are those of myself, the show host, and not of WCEG Network. You can like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn at WCEG _talk _radio and at WCEG Network. And we thank you for your continued support and make sure you tell a friend. Of course, we are still in negotiation with dealing with peace across this world. So we always stop to pause and asking God to give our leaders wisdom so that we can live in a peaceful world. In our last show, of course, we celebrated Single Parents Day in the state of Georgia, which was designated with House Resolution 279. And we interviewed single parents. We recognized 31 single parents as Legacy Builders awardees. And then we ended the day with a panel discussion via Zoom on the impact of single parenting during and after COVID-19. We had our special guest panelists with Dr. Anthony Stroman, the CEO of Stroman Enterprises, and Jade Royale, Brown, mental health facilitator with naming. And they gave some coping mechanisms, what to do, what single parents can do when they're facing unforeseen circumstances when it comes to mental, physical, and financial situations. Excuse me, I don't know what's going on with my voice today. On Saturday, August the 6th, we will celebrate them in person, those 31 awardees, and they'll be formally recognized in DeKalb County. We want to thank Commissioner Larry Johnson, the DeKalb Commissioner, for his assistance with that project. In a couple of months, tickets will be on sale. So if you want to be able to come and help us to celebrate these outstanding single parents, you're more than welcome. We're also seeking sponsors for the event to cover the cost of the tickets for the awardees. We don't want them to have to pay anything to come to the event. You can visit https://nationallg.org. That's https://nationallg.org for more information and how to be, if you want to be a vendor as well, that portal is now open. All right. We always talk about elections. Why is there so much controversy about voter election laws in Georgia and even nationwide? Why does it seem like prior to any election, the laws on how and when to vote seem to change? Why is that, you all? Is it that important? Is voting really that important? The answer is yes, yes, and yes. Whenever you witness any tampering or changing of any policy as many times as we have witnessed during not just before this election, but even before the 2020 election, these elections and voting, those policies that are changing, those are laws that are very, very important. That tells you that something is going on. Anytime there's a consistent change in how you can vote and when you can vote, that means that there's very, very important policies. And your vote does matter. Don't let anyone tell you your vote doesn't matter, because it does. If it didn't, you wouldn't see all of these different state legislatures changing how and when you can cast a vote, how you can use your absentee ballot, whether the polls will open or close at a certain time, when you're standing in line, whether you can have water or you can't have water. So all these things, whether the absentee drop box, if you want to vote early, whether they can be on the inside of the voting polls precinct or on the outside of the voting poll precinct. So all of those things matter, whether now with the new application for absentee ballot application, you have to include your driver's license number or a state ID number when you're filling out their application. Why does all that make a difference? Whether you can vote electronically voting when you go into the polls, or whether it's paper ballot, all of that tells you something, that something is very important dealing with voting. Of course, voting is the foundation of our democracy and the freedom that we have here in America as Americans. It allows us to be able to voice our opinion through our votes, which is our voice, and that's why it counts. And you also look at how many times those changes, they're either to improve the voting process or it's either to discourage those people who really don't pay attention to voting. Now, one thing about it, those of you all who vote all the time, it doesn't matter what those laws are, you're going to go and vote and cast your vote because you know it's that important. But for those who are new to voting, or those who are lackadaisy, when it comes down to voting, they might just say, I'm just going to vote during the presidential election. Then those changes in those laws can really affect that outcome for them. And so you must first start with the word policy. Why is it that voting is so important? Because voting changes the policies. And what does it mean? What does that word policy mean? Well, of course, according to Google and Oxford, a course or principle of action adopted or proposed by a government party, either a party, a business, or individual. Then if you go on to read, according to Merriam-Webster dictionary, their definition, prudence or wisdom in the management of affairs, or management or procedure based primarily on material interests, or a definite course or method of action selected from among alternatives and in light of given conditions to guide and determine present and future decisions. Y'all heard that? Those policies determine present, where we are now, and what's going to happen in the future. And the last definition is high-level overall plan, embracing the general goals and acceptable procedures, especially of a governmental body. Now, you heard some things in there that were common, of management of affairs, determining present and future decisions, primarily material interests, and then you heard procedures, especially of a governmental body. So all this has to do with the government and how the government is ran, how things are run outside of the government, but that's policy. So you may say, okay, Valencia, what do all those definitions have to do with me? What does it have to do with my family, my business? What does it have to do with where I live, my employment, my health, my doctor, my prescription? What development is coming to my neighborhood? What does policy have to do with how I shop for clothing, household items, the car I buy, what type of car I buy, my insurance for the car insurance, my health insurance, what restaurant I choose to eat at, my child's school, what my child would do after high school? What does policy have to do with that? What about where and how I bank or how I invest my money? What the government have to do with that? Or where I choose to worship, where I travel for fun, like this is spring break this whole week, all over the state. So what does policy have to do with where I go, where we going for our spring break vacation? Or what food I decide I'm going to purchase? Or whether I'm going to carry a weapon with a permit or not? And so that list goes on. But guess what? All of those things I just mentioned are affected by policies that are placed into law by the individuals you choose on your ballot each time an election is held. I'm going to say that again. All of those things I mentioned earlier are determined by the individuals that you choose to vote for, who are located on your ballot each time an election is held. Each time, not just the presidential election, but each time there's a call for election, whether it's a primary election that's coming up May the 24th, or whether there's a general election in November, and sometimes there are special elections that are held. And so anytime an election is held, those individuals that are on that ballot, whoever wins, those people are going to determine what policies going to affect you and what you do every day of your life, all the days of your life. So it's very important that you pay attention to who you're choosing to represent you. It doesn't matter, again, I'm going to repeat it, whether it's a presidential election or for the U.S. Senate, U.S. Representative, or state Senate or state representative, your judges, yes, those people that sit on that bench and decide what is going to be the outcome or how they're going to sentence you, if you even having a jury trial, those judges, they are elected. District attorney, yes, who's going to decide how those different cases are going to be prosecuted? The sheriff, superior court clerk, that's the person that handles the paperwork at the court. That person is elected. School board, yes. What is going to be the curriculum? What are going to be the goals for our school district? All of that's decided by the school board. And those individuals are elected. They're not appointed. Now, the superintendent is appointed. That's a whole nother story, because there was a bill that was introduced to make the superintendents elected. I don't know how far it's going to go. We're going to talk about that later, about sign and die today. But all of those things, all those positions, statewide positions, like now we're talking about the commissioner of insurance, the state superintendent, you have the labor commissioner, of course, all of you all who were affected with COVID, with the unemployment issues. You heard me talk about it several times. I had some of my former co-legislators on here talking about it. That person who's in charge, the labor commissioner, decided on how those rules and policies were going to be executed and whether those offices were going to be open or closed, which some of them still closed. So all of that are those people that are elected into office. Your city council and mayor are elected. Your county commissioners are what? Elected. And the list goes on. So whether it's every 2 years you're going to vote, or whether it's every 4 years or 6 years, for the U.S. Senate, it's the only office that is every 6 years. Your vote is your voice. I say it again, your vote is your voice. So don't continue to complain, you have to take action. And even if the candidate that you were voting for and supported is not successful, that does not end the process of you being voter engaged. You have to stay engaged and still hold whoever is elected accountable for what they signed up to be. Remember, those people were not appointed, they were elected. They asked for your vote. And that's why accountability comes into place. You know, I decided to return to politics. I mentioned that at the last episode, the last show. And it was because I noticed that in Congress, for the state of Georgia, there was a deficit in leadership. And I decided to seek the office as a Democrat for the candidacy of Congressional District 5. And for those who might not be familiar with District 5, it is a district that was previously held by the late Congressman John Lewis. And so that election will be May the 24th. And that's a primary election. And so where you have the primary election, for those who might not understand why there's a primary and a general. The primary election is when each party, all those people that are Republicans, they run in one election. All those who are Democrats run in one election. And each one of them are elected at the primary election, which is held May the 24th. Now, there is early voting that starts May the 2nd. It'll be May the 2nd through the 23rd. So that's your time. You have plenty of time to vote. So even if you can't make it on May the 24th, which is that primary day election, you can go into the early voting precincts from May the 2nd all the way to May the 23rd. And even if you physically cannot go in, guess what? You have the opportunity to use absentee ballot, and you don't have to have an excuse for why. It used to be some years ago, you had to either be elderly or disabled, or were not going to be in town during the time of the election, and that's when you were able to use the absentee ballot. But there's no excuse for you to have to give an excuse for using the absentee ballot. And you could be able to get your absentee ballot from your local county registrar's office. And so I'm going to go over that information as well, because I want to make sure everybody is knowledgeable about it. But going back to the reason why I decided to run, of course, I'm a native of the city of Atlanta. And I was born and raised. My parents were born and raised in Atlanta, and I'm a mother of 2 children. I have 8 30-30. That's 8 years as a former state representative, where during that tenure, I sponsored and co-sponsored over a dozen laws that were actually signed into law. So we talked about policies and how policies affect us. Well, those bills that my name is located on actually were signed into law. And then there were some bills that were able to pass out of the House, but of course they didn't make it past the Senate, but they still were voted out of the House. And so being committed and someone that's bold, solution driven, the 30, I told you 8 30-30. So the 30 is that I have 30 years as a small business owner and 30 years as a community advocate. Even when I left from being elected officer in 2020, when I decided to run for U.S. Senate 2 years ago, I still remain active in my community without a title of elected official. We just co-sponsored, I just co-hosted the Teen Summit in February, and then we're coming up with, again, last year was our 4th annual Clayton County Back to School Block Party, where it's open to all Clayton County residents to come and get information. We wasn't just giving out book bags, but we had information. We had nonprofits there to be able to give out information to those who attended. And of course, it was free of no cost. And we're gearing up for it again for our 5th back to school block party. So service is not when you consider being a servant. Serving is when you want to do it, and it's something that comes naturally. And so, and I know that in this position on the federal level, that allows me the opportunity to take my experiences from 8 30-30 to the federal level to make sure that those resources are coming down to the people at the bottom. And a lot of times things get hung up on this way down, coming down that chain or coming down the pipe. And so you want someone who's going to be bold, who's going to be solution driven and committed to the people and not just a puppet. I'm not a puppet, never have been a puppet. And so I going to speak for the people. And so you could go to my website, gostovall.com. And if you want to make a donation or you want to volunteer or you want to find out more about the things that I've done during the 8 years and even before those 8 years of ways that I've been involved in my community. My platform is very simple. It's the buck, the book, and the ballot. The buck is dealing with economic rejuvenation. Our economy needs to be rejuvenated. It needs a big boost. Yeah, you see a lot of things going. We're still suffering from workforce shortages. There are shortages when it comes to the healthcare system. There are workforce shortages with nurses and doctors and those in the healthcare field. Our small businesses are also suffering. And so all of these are things that whoever you elect, those are the focus of the things that they should be paying attention to and making sure that wherever your interest is or those areas where you see that you need help and assistance, that those elected officials like myself going to Congress will be able to make sure that you know about those resources, because a lot of times many departments are underutilized. And so justice reform falls up under, rejuvenating our economy. And so then the second one was dealing with the book. When it comes to economics, you can't have economics without education. And we have to reimagine our education system. This time that with COVID, everything was shut down. And so this is a prime time to now look at making sure our education system is student-centered. If it's student-centered, then everything that we do is going to be centered around the best for our children. That goes back to policy. I mentioned to you earlier about school board members and those in the elected positions that make those decisions for our young people. We need more apprenticeship programs in our schools that gives those students who don't normally learn on a regular traditional level another opportunity for success. Because once those children age out at 18, they become all of our problems. And even when we talk about the money needs to be able to follow that child, because there are specific things and resources that that particular child needs. And so I'm a strong proponent of that is making sure that each child has the best chances for being successful. It doesn't matter whether it's our traditional public school or our non-traditional public, or and that could be charter schools. And it could be our regular tradition. I attended and graduated from Southside Comprehensive High School, which before then I attended Roosevelt, and then before then Fulton High School. And I participated in the magnet program at Southside High School. So it's nothing that has anything to do against the traditional school setting. It's what's going to be best for that particular child. The last B out of the 3 B's is dealing with the ballot, which is what we're talking about today. The ballot, voter education. Yes, you can easily register. You can register when you change your driver's license, when you get your driver's license. If you're receiving Medicaid or food stamps, they're going to ask you that just about everywhere you go. Someone wants to know, do you want to register? And even if you change your address and you want to re-register, you can do that. But the issue is the empathy when it comes down to voters. And that empathy is that some people just don't see the importance of voting. And so because they don't see the importance of voting, we end up having low voter turnout. And that means that the candidate that you really want to win sometimes do not win because you did not come out to vote for that candidate. So we need you all to come out in droves on May the 24th, starting May the 2nd, to vote for the candidate of your choice. And making sure that you are going all the way from the top of the ballot all the way down. And if you see a candidate that you don't know or you don't particularly like, write your own name in as long as you're voting. That's what's important. But guess what? There's a process you can go to find out who is going to be on your ballot. So that way, when you go to the polls, it's very good for you to already know who you're going to vote for. You'll have time to research those candidates to see what their platforms are. And just like I told you, go to my website, gostovall.com, and you can find out what my issues that I will be addressing as a new congressional person for District 5. So if you go to the 3 W's.mvp.sos.ga.gov, or you can just Google my voter page. That might be a little bit easier for you. And so when you go there, you can check your voter status. What you're going to do is very simple. My voter page, this is for you in the state of Georgia. You're going to click on, you're going to put in your first initial of your name, your last name, the county, your date of birth, and then you're just going to click log in. You don't have to create a password because I know if you like me, I got so many passwords, you're about to drive me crazy. I have to record them all somewhere to keep up with them. But remember, first initial, and you can do it while we're actually on here, while we're talking. I'll walk you through it. That first initial, last name, county, date of birth, and then you click log in. When you click on that log in, they have redesigned the website, and I'm glad. So I'm glad they redesigned it. So there are 5 tabs at the top. It has my registration information that tells you all your information about when you registered, last time that you registered to vote. Your voting location. So if you're not sure where you're supposed to go to vote, that's very important because on election day, you have to go to your precinct. Now for early voting, if you want to go in person, and they call it advanced voting as well, then you have to check with your county registrar to find out where are the early voting locations. Now with the early voting locations, you can go to any one of those voting locations within your county. You can't go outside your county. You have to go within your county because you go outside, guess what? Your vote is not going to count. So if you're in Clayton, you can go Google Clayton Elections Board. If you're in DeKalb County, DeKalb Elections Board. Fulton County Elections Board. And they will have a list on there, all the early voting locations and the times and where they're located. And when you go, you would take your ID with you, your picture ID, government ID with you, or your passport, or whatever that official, or you could take your state ID with you. And you go, and that's where you would go and cast your vote. But like I said before, you want to get a copy of that ballot, sample ballot. So you can go and start researching these candidates. Even you can call them or send them an email if you got a question about something that you read on their website that you weren't sure about. This is the power of your voice, which is in your vote. It's being an educated voter and knowing who's been doing their job and who has not been doing their job. Some people need to get that pink slip and be sent home because they haven't been doing their job. So now the third tab is voter participation history. So you can be able to see when the last time how you've been voting. You're able to see that. Absentee ballot portal is another tab. Elected officials info. So if you're not sure who the elected officials are, it's going to show you what district that you'll be voting for. So if you're in Congressional District 5, you will see 5. You'll see Congressional and you'll see 5. And that's where you can go and cast your vote for Stovall. That's all. Now, on your My Voting locations, if you scroll down to precinct polling information, that's where you will see the Chief Registrar's office, and you can always send them an email. And especially if you want to be able to do your absentee ballot. Now, if you go to the absentee ballot portal, you can scroll down to the bottom and it says request absentee ballot application. Now, there's 2 ways you can do that. You can either pre-fill it online, because once you click it, say fill out online. You can fill all it out, and then you're going to have to print it out because you got to physically sign it. Or if you already have your signatures, some people are more advanced with computers and they have the signatures already, in there, but you can download, you can print it out. That way you don't have to write it in. Or if you don't want to fill it out online, you can just download it and print out a blank copy. Now, the good thing is that once you print it out, you can then upload it back into the system after you signed it so that it can go to be routed to the right place. So those are some of the new features that was not previously that I didn't notice on the Secretary of State's website. It makes it a little bit easier for you when you're trying to go and vote. So remember, that's mvp.sos.ga.gov. And that's very important that you know what your status is, because you don't want to wait till May the 2nd and you find out, because you may have moved and you didn't change your voter registration and you end up not being in the district and you can't even vote. You can vote, but you can't vote for the person you thought you was going to have to vote for. So make sure that you are doing that. And remember, I'm going to say it again, your vote is your voice, and that's what's important. That's why there's so much talk, even in Washington, D.C., when you talk about the voting rights bill that needs to be passed. And what that does on a federal level, it will eliminate the states having to come back and keep changing all of these things that they're doing on the state level, depending on who's in charge of who's the party that's in charge. And so your vote does count, and it's not just during the presidential election. It counts because on the local level, those decisions that your city council, mayor, county commissioners, all of them are making at that time when they're voting on policies, and school board is considered local. When they're making those decisions, they go into effect immediately or within so many days. Now, when you're on the state level, the only time that the state will be implementing any bills or voting on them is during the 40 days of legislative session. And so because of those 40 days of legislative session, that's when bills are created, they are changed, altered, they're signed into law during that particular time. Now, here's the kicker. Today is sign and die. Yeah, that's going to be part of my say what. Yeah, so this is the last day that the legislative body on the House and the Senate can be able to pass any legislation and have a chance of it making to the governor's desk for him to sign. Now, the governor can could either sign the legislation immediately, or he can wait 40 days. He has 40 days to sign it. If he does not sign it in 40 days, or he does not veto it, veto means I don't want this bill to go into law. So if he does not either sign it or veto it in 40 days, then that bill automatically becomes law. And that has happened before in the past. And sometimes that happens when there might be a controversial issue, and that person, the governor, may decide, well, hey, I'm gonna let the people decide, how they want to handle it. I don't have a complete decision that I want to make on the bill, but it's not so bad that I want to veto it. And so, so that's where the 3 ways a bill either becomes law, or does not become law. But today is sign and die, and so a lot of people on pins and needles running around in that Capitol, especially if you had a bill you've been working on a long time. I've had 2 bills that I actually sponsored myself. And so I do know the stress level of sign and die, especially, and even if your bill passed out of the chambers, one of the chambers, say in the House side, say if it passed out in February, but the Senate had not heard your bill yet, and they were kind of waiting to, and usually what they'll do is wait to almost close to the end of session to kind of see if you vote another way or something happens in between, and they'll know whether they're going to pull your bill off the floor, that they don't vote on it or hold it. Or someone else may have a bill that they want to strip your bill, because say if your bill passed over from one chamber to the other, and I talked about that previously, when it comes down to crossover day. And so you can have a bill that has passed out of one chamber and someone else's bill didn't get into traction. And what they'll do is go in and amend your bill and do a substitute and take your language out your bill, put their bill language in it, and still use your bill number. Yes, it does happen, and it can happen. And I'm pretty sure it's probably going to happen today if it hasn't already. And they're going to be down there probably till about midnight tonight because this is the last day. And so you have a lot of people, a lot of lobbyists and other interest groups, organizations are down at the Capitol trying to make sure that their legislation they've been working on makes it to the finish line. But remember what I said, it can make it to the finish line down to the governor's desk, and he can decide not to sign it, or he can decide to veto it. And all the work you've done, you have to start back over in January again. And so that's the importance of your vote. That's why your vote is important. And the person you put in office is important. You want someone that's going to be responsive to you when you have an issue, not push you to the side and say, we're going to return, and you never hear anything back from them. And even on the federal level, yes, majority of my time will be spent in Washington, D.C. But that's why you have office, and you make sure you have good staff to make sure that your constituents' concerns are heard. The constituent concerns, you are considered a constituent. Wherever you live, you are the constituent of that elected official. And I think that goes back to when I talked about the ballot, that third B, voter education. If you understood how much power that you have as a voter, and if you execute and use that power a lot more, then you will see a lot more changes in your community. But because you don't use it, because you might not know about it, then sometimes things that happen in our community, we wonder why certain communities have more affluent things going on. They have better shopping situations. The crime is not as high in certain areas. It's because they understand the power of that one vote that they have. And when that vote is collected together, what we call collective voting, then there's more strength in numbers. Y'all hear that all the time. There's strength in numbers. But that one person who's a constituent can cause a lot of trouble just being that one person. But just think, if that one person is multiplied 3 times, 4 times, 20 times, 30 times, or 40 times, how much more successful that particular person can be, or those people can be in getting their issues passed. So going back, House Bill 614 was my first bill that I was the first signer on, the first author on the bill. And you have to learn how to compromise. You have to be able to work across the aisle, which I did very well as a state legislator for those 8 years. And because of me working across the aisle, I was able to bring $45 million grant back to my community, the people that I was elected to serve, which was Clayton County, because of issues that was going on with the federal administration, Federal Aviation Administration. And so being able to work across the aisle, you're able to compromise on certain things, and some things, you're just not going to be able to compromise on. But you find those areas where you can be able to compromise on, and you work to the area where you haven't been able to compromise on. So with 614, it was a Landon-Johnson Act, and it allowed video cameras to be placed in the classrooms of special needs students who were self-contained. And these were using students that were nonverbal, or if they were verbal, they could not easily retain information or memory of something that may have happened. And they could have been intellectual, or they could have been behavior-wise. And so with that bill on Saturday, I remember we had already gotten it passed on the House, and it was over in the Senate, and we were just waiting. And I ended up, we took a break. I remember we took a break to go to dinner. And my sister and I, we left. We on our way back, somebody called, said, the Senate is back in the chambers and they getting ready to vote on your bill. I said, what? And so that excitement of knowing my first bill, being passed in 2016, and after being sworn in 3 years later, you have your first bill passed. With some people have been there a while and they usually don't even have that many bills that's passed, even especially starting off. And then my second bill that I was a signer on, that was signed into law, which we celebrated last episode, which was House Resolution 279, designating Single Parents Day in the state of Georgia. It's March 21st every year. And so those are exciting times. And I know with the benefits of passing legislation, I understand the benefits of being a signer onto other legislation, especially those bills that are very, very pertinent to what's going to happen to the people that we serve. And so that experience is going to be replicated. So when you think about the U.S. representative or the congressperson's position on the federal level, it's just a mimic or exact mirror of what I have been doing on the state level. The process is the same. Some things a little bit longer, but the process of, hey, you have to have an idea for a bill. You then have to have the bill drafted, and then you have to work to find people that will be on the same page as you to be able to agree to the bill. And that could be your legislators in the House and the Senate, and also those organizations and other interest groups that'll be able to support your bill. And at the same time, you have to also identify those who are not in support of your bill, because they can end up stopping your bill in the process. So there's a lot of experience that plays in, that is an advantage for me because I've gone through the process. Okay, so we're going to now go into our announcements because we're almost running out of time. And remember, I'm going to repeat, my voter page. You can Google my voter page. That's going to be essential for you for this May primary election and also your November election. Early voting starts May the 2nd through the 23rd. So that means you can go in and take your cast your ballot early. You don't have to wait to May the 24th. You can go ahead and say, I'm going to get it over, get your little sticker and take your picture, post your picture, say, hey, I've already voted for my choice in all of those different areas on your ballot. And it's going to be a lot of them on there. So take your time. That's why I said, make sure you get a sample of the ballot. As of today, I did not see the sample ballot on there. So just check back in a couple of weeks or so, but it'll be on there before May the 2nd. It's supposed to be on there before May the 2nd. So you can have time to go and research your candidates, okay? So 7 Pillars Career Academy, you all know I've been making this announcement. They have Mission Wipe It Clean project. And so they have these, they're offering the Clorox wipes, and they have different prices on here, $10, $18, and $120 for the larger packs. You can call the school. Of course, don't call this week because guess what? They're on spring break. So, but the number is 404-500-1294. And your donation goes towards, or your investment in those students at 7 Pillars goes towards the cost of relocation and repurposing of the facility. So they'll be moving from where they are over on Hendricks Drive, and they'll be going to the Morrow High School, the old building of Morrow High School, because the students are now moving to the new building of Morrow High School. So they will be in the one that's on Old Rex Morrow Road. And that's actually where my son and my nephew and my niece and a couple of cousins also graduated from there. So Morrow Mustangs, marching Mustangs, go Mustangs. And so that's where 7 Pillars will be located at. And we're excited about the move. Of course, you know, I want them to have their own building where they didn't share it, but that's a whole nother show for a whole nother day. But we're going to move on with that. And, you know, they're career focused. And so college and career focused. So their goal is that when the students graduate from their high school, they're now 6th, 7th, 8th, and next year, this upcoming school, you'll be 9th grade. So I believe enrollment is still taking place. If not, still check with the school. And so eventually they will move up to 12th grade. So when those students matriculate from the 12th grade, they should be graduating with either associates or a bachelor's in a trade, a certified trade, where they can go immediately to work. So if they do decide to go to 4-year college, that's well and fine, and that's good. But guess what? They can make some money and earn it and not have to worry about so much of student debt if they're not able to get those scholarships. So that's very important. So anyway, support them on there by investing in their Clorox wipes. And we still need those wipes. Next announcement, Europa Day Culture Celebration. This will be our second annual, but we've done one before, so I guess this will be the third event, but the second annual. And it will be held Saturday, April the 30th, and it'll be virtually. And Yoruba is one of the largest African tribes in Africa and nationwide. And we're going to get a chance to hear from 2 of their kings, and we'll be able to virtually visit their palaces and hear music, see art, and see some of the historical sites that they have for us. So y'all be on the lookout for information, and you can like my Facebook page. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. So you can also, join me on all of those as well. So you can keep up with what we're doing. And I'd like to give a special shout out to Dee Hill, who's a radio and TV personality and producer. We've collaborated on the Women and Men in Radio Days at the state capitol. And then yearly after that, we recognize women in the radio. And we had some fantastic, phenomenal women and even men that we recognized. We was able to give them a resolution. So their names are now etched in the state of Georgia's history. And she's now the founder of Radio Soul magazine, which highlights all the careers in radio, ranging from on-air personalities to behind-the-scenes roles, such as sound engineers and producers. And of course, I was featured in the first edition. So thanks. Hold it up so y'all can see it. And this is Radio Soul. So she'll be having some more editions that'll be published. So thanks, Dee Hill, for that. I talked about the primary election. It's May the 24th. Early voting is when? The 2nd through the 23rd. I can't emphasize that enough. And you can apply for your absentee ballots through your county voter registrations office. Okay, we're going to get ready to our say what? And then I have one final announcement that y'all going to really be excited about. And so, of course, I talked about today was sign and die. And I wish that, you all need to log in. Go to legis.ga.gov. That's legis.ga.gov. And then you can click on either the House chamber or you can click on the Senate. And you all will get a chance to hear all these people making their presentations on their bills, people who are against the bill, those who are for the bill. You get a chance to see all that. So you're going to get some laughs and you're going to get some, what? I can't believe they're trying to get that bill passed. But yeah, so this is the day everybody's running around on pins and needles. And so I said, say what? And I said, power to those people that are down there, having, especially the legislators, but this is a long day and they still have almost 7 to 8 more hours to go. So we just pray for them that they make the best decision for our community here in Georgia. But hey, they're down there for sign and die. So of course, the other say what was that slap that was known around the world. I don't even have to tell you what happened, but it took place at the Oscars. And it's still on the minds of so many people. So that's another say what? Yeah, so we really want to know what was really going on. Yes, some people say they think it was staged, and others say, no, it wasn't staged, that was real. I don't know. I wasn't there. But I know that's a say what. So now for the announcement, we have a few more minutes that are left. Think about, okay, a few more minutes left. So as many of you all know, my heart felt when it comes to education and making sure that every child has the opportunity for the best education. And so my team and I got together and we're going to offer a free screening, movie screening. It's going to be virtual, so y'all don't have to worry about trying to come in person. So you can go ahead and still get your popcorn and your drinks and whatever you're going to need, gather your family around and everyone. this movie that we're doing this free screening for is an outstanding movie if you have not seen it. I've seen it, but I can look at it over and over again. The name of the movie is Miss Virginia. That's MISS, the word Virginia. And it's not because of the state of Virginia. It is the person's name, Virginia Walden Ford. And it's going to be on Sunday, April the 24th at 4 p.m. So you all keep checking back on the website. Our registration is soon going to open up. Hopefully by this Friday, we'll be able to open it up. So you can register to be able to watch this movie with us. And we're going to have a panel discussion to talk about those scenes in that movie and how it affected that parent, how it affected that child, how it affected the school district, how it affected policies. You know, we talked about policies and what the meaning of policies, the definition, and how all of that plays. And usually at the end, it's always the person that's at the end who it affects the most. It's not the people at the top who are making a decision. It's the people that are at the bottom who it affects the most. So you may say, what is Miss Virginia about? Why are you talking about this particular movie? Well, Miss Virginia is about a struggling single parent who has a son that she's raising in the Washington, D.C. metro area. And she's seen his struggle in the current school district, and he's not doing well. Of course, he's faced with so many obstacles like our children are now, a lot of them, with gangs, with dropping out, you know, with being talked down and saying you're not going to be anything, you're not in it, you're not going to be nothing because of the school district and where it was located at. So many single parents are facing, and not just single parents. So you don't have to be a single parent to watch this movie screening. A parent, if you're a parent, a grandparent, if you're an adopted parent, or you just an auntie, an uncle, a cousin who is concerned about the education of your child, this is the movie to see. It is very hard compelling. You're gonna get angry, you're gonna laugh, then you're gonna get back angry, and then you're gonna be saying, what do we need to do to fix these systems or to bring about solutions to the problem that's going on with our young people, And so she's just trying to get the best education for her son in Washington, D.C. She has an interaction, of course, with people in Washington, D.C. And there are some people who look like her but were not for her. And then she had to try to educate her community where she lived at, in the people in her apartment and in her street, in the whole community where she lived, about the same issues they were facing. But guess what? The difference between Miss Virginia and those other parents was that they were acceptable or accepted of the situation. And that's what's happening with our education system today. Too many of our parents are accepting the situation because they feel like they don't have the power to make the change that needs to take place. So this is another say what. You can add this to the say what list. But this particular parent found the power within to say, no, enough is enough. My child is not going to be a statistic. I'm going to find out what I need to find out and what I need to do, and I'm going to get others to join me, and we're going to rally together, even if that means we have to go to jail. And they were jail. They went to jail. So, but the outcome that she wanted for her child and her son's future was just that important that she was willing to sacrifice everything she could to make sure her child had an opportunity. And that's what so many of our families are facing, especially in Congressional District 5. You want an opportunity for your child, just like any other more affluent area those students have it, your child should have it too. And so watching this movie, Miss Virginia, hopefully will spark that flame to get you motivated to go into action, or it's going to take you up a whole nother level. If you've already been an advocate, you're going to be an advocate even more. And remember, it's not about just her child. She's thinking about the other children in the community, even one of her neighbors' daughters. She's thinking about her and her future. And so join us on April the 24th as we look at the free screening for Miss Virginia. And you can go and look at the trailers. You can Google it, MISS in the state Virginia, VIRGINIA. And you can be able to see what you're going to be in for a good treat for. And so Be on the lookout for that registration link. I'm going to be posting it on our social media platform, and we're going to ask you to share it. And this is over to anybody. You don't have to just be a parent, but if you want to see things better and you want to know how the process works with policies and how sometimes policies just don't work in your favor. And when they don't work in your favor, guess what? You got the power to change it. And when you use your voice, which is your vote, then you can see a change that comes about. And it end up being a collective change that not only for your child is present in the school, but for the future of those other kids that have to come after your child leaves. So join us, Miss Virginia Screen, April the 24th at 4 p.m. And the registration will be on our GoStovall.com page real soon. Well, y'all, you know, all good things must come to an end sometimes. And time has actually caught us. But guess what? We'll be back for our next show on Monday, April the 18th at 4 o'clock. So you tune back in and be looking out for the notices. I think we might have a special treat. Some I have not talked about before, haven't had on my show as a subject area to talk about. But it's really, really on the tips and the minds of a lot of people, not just here in Georgia, but across the U.S. And so the goal of Issues and Answers with Honorable Stovall, yours truly, is to educate you on those things that you might not think about unless you are in a situation to be concerned. So, and if you have any show ideas, send me an email at contact@gostovall.com. And until then, y'all be safe, and we'll see you the next time. And actually, you can stay tuned on because at 6 o'clock, I will be a guest on The People's Choice with Joe Flint and Jamita Chapman. And so I'll be talking a little bit more about my congressional race at that time. So stay tuned to WCEG Network, the Worldwide Empowerment Network. You all have a good evening.